to that as soon as we can. And here we are, Kassis 5-0, of course, 4-color reclamation against Wataru Ueda on mono black aggro. And we see there with Kassis, this is what you're trying to exploit as the aggro deck. It is a hand that is outstanding in the reclamation mirror and really not what you're in the market for against mono black aggro.
Well, on the other side of things, Kassis does have the play here. So that means this growth spiral is going to come down, put Kassis even further ahead. And Mystical Dispute is still a cancel, right? This is not your pile of 1-drops aggro deck that we've seen people like Sandy Dog bring to the table that are good at slipping under Mystical Dispute. That Mystical Dispute is still probably going to be worth a Rankle or a Spawn of Mayhem.
And this hand from Ueda, this is not a fast hand. This is not Gutter Bones into 2-drop into 3-drop. This draw is going to need some more time to get going. And also, Ueda is on the draw. So Kassis really not under any immediate pressure, can find a window in all likelihood to make that dispute useful.
That being said, a cursory glance over Kassis' list, I don't believe there are any sweepers main deck. So this Kitesail Freebooter may actually just be good for that long.
Yeah, and we've seen that there was a brief trend towards main deck copies of Stormstrath when mono green aggro was a big deck. Now that that's fallen back a bit, those sweepers are less reliable because you're not quite sure what you're meant to be targeting with them. And so that opens a window again for a deck like mono black aggro, which, thanks to cards like Hunted Nightmare, can even get around some of that damage-based removal.
Yeah, the toughness of all of these black creatures is just so much that even Storm's Wrath wouldn't be good enough, which is why a lot of these decks have sort of moved away from it.
And Emma, look at this. So, Kassis shot in a land, passed the turn with the Growth Spiral up. Ueda cast Kitesail Freebooter. Kassis did not Growth Spiral in response, and decided to just let that happen.
How horrifying is that if you're an Ueda spot where Kassis shocked for the Growth Spiral, knew there were Freebooters as one of Ueda's premier 3-drops, or 2-drops, and said, nah, you can take it. That's fine.
Even having that face-up information, thanks to the freebooter, I would be terrified if in a way to see it about that. The fact that Kassis feels that comfortable about his position not to make the marquee turn 2 play of this deck, the thing that elevates it above all of the non-Growth Spiral decks in the format. And look at this, his Rankle on turn 4 for Ueda. Kassis used that Mystical Dispute on the Spawn of Mayhem last turn, which I understand. I think he had to do that, but now that leaves a door open for Rankle.
Oh, this is such a rough spot because now Rankle's going to start doing the Liliana of the Veil thing and just reducing the number of resources that both players have available. And this Reclamation deck ultimately is a high resource deck. It needs a lot of cardboard to get off the ground.
Easy choice for Kassis to pitch there to the Rankle. That negate, not doing anything for him anytime soon. And now Wataru gets to attack with these creatures here. Kassis can make a 2-2 Shark, ambush the Kitesail Freebooter. And now Wataru has a choice of whether to use Swift End to knock that one out of the way. And
it looks like we're setting up for that. I want to go for it here, yeah.
We're knocking that one down, and so now we get to connect for 4. We get whichever combination of Rankle triggers Wataru wants, and we get to follow up with a Knight of the Ebon Legion. Plus, we've just dealt 4 damage, so we get to put a counter on that one too.
No triggers from Rankle. How wild is that?
It kind of makes sense, right? I mean, you're not going to make both players sacrifice. You don't really want to discard these 2 cards. And you know that for Kassis, he only needs one thing, like an Explosion, like a Shark Typhoon to do some damage. Likely to have an extraneous card he can pitch. You want to keep both of yours, and you also don't want to help him draw towards any of those high-impact cards. So, yeah, maybe just get him for 3.
Yeah, I just think the biggest strike in favor of making both players draw a card is that loss of life. Because if Kassis had 1 less life here, Knight of the Ebon Legion plus Kitesail Freebooter would be lethal.
But now, a tale as old as time, Wilderness Reclamation plus Expansion Explosion. And as you say, this could be where Ueda regrets not going for that.
Okay, main deck duress off the top. This is fine. This is a way that might actually make it so Ueda doesn't get punished for Kassis getting that extra untapped step.
And look at this. Kassis did kind of brick off that explosion, just drawing a bunch of lands, and we do have an Uro there, which maybe can do some work. But Ueda will get to make another nice attack, Follow it with another threat.
Yeah, this is certainly not a Castle Vantress matchup.
And sending Kassis down to 1 life. 1 life which he could have dealt last turn, but it comes at a cost. And now Kassis back up to 4 thanks to Uro.
And Knight of the Eben Legion can now even comfortably attack into an Uro.
And Uro will escape. I have definitely lost count of what our total is at right now. But Kassis, we do know, is back up to 7 life.
I think we've moved to the point where Uro is a unit of measurement. We can just say an Uro of triggers.
And Shark Typhoon and a second expansion explosion on deck for Kassis. So I think he may have well and truly seized control of this one.
Oh, that 7 life from Uro is just so huge. Especially when you just have 8 mana on the back of it with this Wilderness Reclamation. That means at the very least, Kassis could just explosion for 4.
Wataru sends in the clowns.
Big ol' shark do.
It's only a 2-2. Well, let's have some standards here. And there is Nightpack Ambusher joining the fray too. Maybe just a chump block of sorts with this Ambusher?
This just eats so much of Ueda's mana that I think Kassis is okay with this exchange. It's not about the Nightpack Ambusher. It's about the time.
And there's a second Knight.
That just is not doing that much. Uro is free to attack, and now Kassis just has lethal with this explosion. If Ueda doesn't chump block.
Kassis draws a dead Ether Gust, and it ain't gonna matter. Wataru thinking through his options, but Kassis firmly in control of this game at this point.
Yeah, this explosion really just threatens to answer anything that Ueda has that could put them back into this game. And that's why we see no blocks from Ueda, knowing that if the explosion's there, you're not beating it.
Here we go.
Q, 12.
Select a value of X. And Kassis will take game 1. In good shape to be 6-0 in this tournament, but going to have to win one more game first. And looking at sideboarding here for both players, we do see for Kassis, there is Storm's Wrath, there is Bonecrusher Giant, there's even Essence Scatter, which I think was primarily there for the Mardu Winota deck, where that is an answer to Winota, that's what you need, but also does good work here, hitting a card like Hunted Nightmare, or Spawn of Mayhem, or Rankle.
And this is just a situation where losing game 1 is devastating for Ueda. Things get so much worse post sideboard because all of a sudden, Kassis isn't going to be choking on things like Negate, on things like Aether Gust. Now, he actually just has a deck full of relevant cards, and that's such a harder thing to beat twice, especially when you know you're going to be on the draw game 3.
And look at Wadaru's deck. I think the idea here is you want to be pre-configured against Reclamation, but that means you don't really have many cards that you can upgrade or many sideboard cards that you can board in. You've got some Agonizing Remorses, and maybe they're in the market for that. But outside of that, it's 4 Cry of the Carnarium, 3 Grasp Bananas, 3 Noxious Grasp. These are meant with other matchups in mind. The main deck is built for this matchup, and that's why if you lose game 1, things only get worse after sideboarding.
Right, Ueda's plan here is just to beat up on these decks, not have to compensate for them.
And you can see some analysis of Mono Black Aggro, Team of Reclamation, all the other decks in this format, as well as all of the other Magic news, all the other formats as well on StarCity Games Premium. You see there, become a member for just $7.99 a month, get analysis from the best commentators in Magic, as well as exclusive benefits as well. And heading back to this game, we see a hand from Kassis, which not too impressive, but then Wataru has some mulligan and doesn't have a great start in their own right.
Yeah, this is a spot where that Hunted Nightmare looks like it would be a great way to start things off, but Ely just has Brazen Borrower to undo that entire turn from Ueda, and then Borrower can even check something like Rankle.
Ueda held off on this duress for a turn, is going to use it now, and see that Kassis' draw because it is a little slow and clunky, isn't really relying on one thing that you can poke a hole in that drawer with. So, okay, you take the Reclamation, you take the Expansion Explosion, but it's not like Kassis had a Storm's Wrath that was the entire point of its hand, and now you've taken that instead.
Right, this is a hand where Kassis is more or less saying, okay, I'm just going to play off the top of my library and know that whatever I find is going to be that powerful on its own.
And here's Hunted Nightmare. And Ueda's philosophy here is saying, all right, here's one sock full of pennies, here's another sock full of pennies. I'm just going to continue attacking with these large creatures until something sticks.
And look at this interesting line from Kassis. Not bouncing that Nightmare on 2 means that this Rankle doesn't come down on 3.
And an interesting line from Ueda too, of not casting that Rankle into a potential Brazen Borrower.
Exactly. This is a spot where Ueda, they're both just operating on levels where, because there's so much information face up, it just informs what they have available to them and how they actually want to sequence their cards into each other.
So Kassis will get to land an explosion here. What do you make of Kassis, or Ueda, sorry, taking the Expansion Explosion with the duress instead of the Reclamation?
I think this is a spot where Ueda was more worried about what that explosion would do long term, and thinks it is easier to attack Kassis' removal spells than mana, because ultimately Wilderness Reclamation is just a mana source.
We could even see that expansion paired with the Petty Theft to get 2 creatures off the board, buying Kassis a lot of time. So here we go. 200 Nightmares and a Rankle heading into the red zone for Ueda. And just a hard-cast Brazen Borrower taking care of the Rankle. But now Kassis falls to 8.
So this is a lot of damage on the chin, but this Blast Zone is going to take care of both of those Hunted Nightmares next turn.
And that's the utility of Blast Zone in this deck. It gets you out of these situations that really no other card in the format or in the deck could.
And look at this Essence Scatter off the top. That's the perfect draw.
Yeah, that's the perfect insurance against whatever the follow-up is. You know, something like a Rankle can no longer steal this game again. Kassis has another Petty Theft into Brazen Borrower to follow up with as well. And that Heartless Act just rotting away there over in Ueda's hand. You need some amount of that to hedge against cards like Ur or Star Typhoon, but in situations like this, you'd rather have basically anything else.
And there go those Hunted Nightmares, worth 8 and 4 damage respectively, but now it just feels like Ueda's kind of out of gas.
And I think we're going to see Kassis be the first to lock up top 8 in our tournament here.
There's still a little bit that Kassis needs to find, right? Because there isn't a Castle Vantress or anything, and Ueda has a pair of Castle Lockthorn.
Well, speak of the devil, Emma.
Yeah. I was halfway into the sentence and saw the explosion come off, and yeah.
Hey, look, you don't go 6-0 in a tournament with Reclamation without drawing Expansion Explosion when you need it. Maybe Kassis does. I think Kassis could probably thread that needle anyway, but sure is nice to get this over and done with. Kassis can go and get a snack or a drink maybe before his next round.
The real 1-2 step is just Q.
Would you call a snack and a drink a Splinter Twin situation?
No, not remotely, no.
But could I if I wanted to?
What about top 8 dinner? Top 8 and dinner, that's a Splinter Twin situation.
I think top 8 dinner is just a 1-card combo. You know, that's a self-contained engine right there.
And that explosion does find a fresh grip of cards for Kassis, who is now at the hard-casting Shark Typhoon phase of the game with a couple Brazen Borrowers hiding out.
I guess we're going to have targets for that Heartless Act.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I could see happening for Ueda here is that Kassis disconnects.
I guess you have to play towards your outs. But that Knight of the Ebon Legion is going back to hand. We're making a Shark, making a Brazen Borrower.
Do. And a lot of this is the power of these Reclamation decks, right? So we see Kassis just bringing a fairly stock list, no bad cards teamer, and just crushing all comers because this deck does have the ability to fight on all of these different axes. Even if it is a dog game 1, it can still just win on the basis of power level.
And Wataru going to be knocked down to 5-1 here. Again, still in excellent shape to get to the top 8 and maybe force a rematch with Kassis later in the day. This is where you kind of hope that Kassis draws like an Ether Gust that he forgot to sideboard out or something just to add insult to injury. Cast it on your own Reclamation, get a Shark token, put the Reclamation on top, cast it again, get a Shark token.
And it looks like Ueda's hovering over that concession button.
Facing down a mighty Air Force.
Shark Force 1, if you will.
I won't, but you can, and you may. And clearly will.
Thank you. And that is going to lock it up. Ely